This is a video tool for the tectonic hazard assignment where you're looking at the impact of a tsunami and an earthquake on a certain area. This is a map you'll need of California. It illustrates the type of rocks and soil at the surface, going from the hardest obviously to the softest. You also need this link that takes you to a fault map of your particular area. And so we'll take a look at that in just a minute. But your first step really is to go to Google Earth and take a look at your location. So all your locations are shown in Google Earth as a place mark. So I'm going to take a look at Toro Canyon right here. This is my particular region. And one of the first things I want to do is to be able to put on a tsunami line. And so if I go up to in Google Earth, I'll drag this down just a little. I'll say add path. When I add a path, I can do it along a certain line, so I can make it whatever color I want in Google Earth. And then the elevation I told you to look for is 20 meters. So in Google Earth, you'll look for, where is this 20-meter location, and you'll go along and keep an eye on this elevation. Whoops. Took it off the screen. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit so we can see the elevation at the bottom of our Google Earth. 17 meters, 0 meters, you see. So I want to go up to 20 meters. And I can do it kind of over here at the side. Alright, so there's 20 meters. I'll go across 20 meters, 20 meters. Gets a little closer to the coast down here. 20 meters. Etc., all the way across the map. So this is your line of the 20 meters, so your tsunami wave can travel in that far. So then you have a location, so I can say, okay, so now I have a location of my safety zone. I have to get across that. So now, what about a place? I want to be able to, let's say that's my house right there. I want you to pick some place on the coastline. And I'm just going to call that start point. Alright, so this is my starting point for my evacuation, and now I have to figure out which line, where I'm going to go. And for this, now I can go ahead and zoom in a little bit. I think the imagery you want to use, you want to be zoomed out a little bit. But I can add another path here. This time I'll just change the color, make it a yellow path from here. And I have to be realistic. I don't see there's not a good place to get around the highway, right? So in this particular case, I'm going to have to, so starting there and continuing, whoops, got an extra spot there. All right, there we go. I'm going to have to just probably cross the road, right? But you want to look around. You can see if there's a good place to cross the road. Is there an underpass? It doesn't appear there's an underpass. It's possible that this is an underpass right here, but probably not. So I'll just continue across the road. And so in this case, maybe you want to make a straighter path across there. Adjust that a little bit. And then we'll just, whoops. But you see I need to click that last one so that I'm continuing a straight line up here. And I get across that final road. I don't need that first spot right there. Come on. Go away. Alright, so there's my evacuation route now. It goes up and gets me across that line. Now the other thing to do here is, what's going to be the harm from your earthquake? And so this is where you look at particular items that are within the zone. So example, we have a bunch of greenhouses down here, infrastructure rise, obviously we have a road. A lot of these homes are going to be hard hit by it. They're expensive residential homes. So that's the basic things, but there's not really a lot of industry you'll see right here. This is fields, farm fields. This looks like a school complex here, but the school complex, probably it's their fields that are going to get hurt, not so much anything else. And so that's what you're going to assess. Now, you cannot really assess, how bad is the fire damage going to be, how good is the building codes here. Hard to assess from a Google Earth image. But what you can assess is there any steep slopes that are going to generate a landslide? And there aren't any. The other thing is, how solid is this ground? And that's where I go back to my map. So you have to put in this map and say for Toro Canyon, how solid is the ground. And so Toro Canyon is right down in here. So it's going to be this alluvium, which is pretty good, but not the I shouldn't say pretty good. It's not the highest rated, but it's not real strong either. So that's going to be a problem for those residences. The other thing to keep in mind is this fault map. So your fault map, you need to look up your area on your fault map. And so they have a fault map of all of California. You have to know where your spot is. My spot, Toro Canyon, is down in here. And you'll zoom in, and you can't get too close, or you'll see you'll lose the map. But in a certain place, what you're looking for is these different maps, or these different colored faults. And so you'll see the key over here, for what these various faults are. And so, the orange faults are more recent faults, so are the red faults. That's what you have to be worried about. The green faults are faults that have occurred, but they haven't had recent failures along them. So how many of these are close to your site? And by close, they don't have to be right on top of your place. So in the end, you'll end up with a PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint will look something like this. Toro Canyon, your first slide has that 20-meter line, your evacuation route. You'll also annotate a slide that will show kind of the general area and potential hazards. I have a square here indicating the packed residential area, triangle indicating this greenhouse complex. And so each thing that you think is a real problem. And so the residential area here, my star, I'll move up my star up to that residential area, and my square is supposed to show this highway. So those are my three main things that I'm worried about infrastructure wise. I then describe what the geologic setting is in terms of this ground surface materials. Here's my fault map. I'm pointing out the location. We have a bunch of faults that are quite close to the area, and so there's reason to suspect that this is a problem that's going to have some faults. I say, and you summarize, there are several faults that have been active in the last 10,000 years, but none real recently, so that's the last couple of centuries. But just because they haven't been active in the last couple of centuries doesn't mean that you don't have a problem. There's still active faults around. And that's the tsunami assignment. And you'll just submit this PowerPoint.